today. We also welcome those from across the province that are tuning in through our IT feed. We have an agenda, but there's going to be a recommended change to the agenda, so we'll have to, before we adopt the agenda, I propose that we add an item under 4, business arising. It's Marystown review, notice of motion. So that's the one amendment to our agenda. Hearing no others. Firstly, is it acceptable to the group that we do change the agenda? So I need a vote of full support. All in favor? Okay, so now I'm going to take a motion to accept the agenda as modified. Moved by Steve, seconded by Tom. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much. First item on the agenda is under the consideration of minutes. It's the board meeting minutes of December 7th, 2009. These would have been included in the mail out of the package for the meeting. So are there any errors or omissions? Hearing none, can I get to entertain a motion to accept the minutes as presented? So moved by Wayne, seconded by Pam. Discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. All right. So under business arising, the one item that's under business arising, 4.1, Marystown review, notice of motion. As part of our session this morning, we did the updates on this, and we now have a change of tack that our Vice Chair Hayward is going to outline.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At the board meeting on December the 7th, 2019, the board gave notice that the following motion will be voted on at a board meeting of March 28, 2020. The motion: Marystown Central High School System, Marystown Central High, grades 10 to 12, Pierce Junior High, grades 8 and 9, Sacred Heart Academy, grades K to 7, Donald C. Jameson Academy, grades K to 7. Whereas the Newfoundland and Labrador English School District is committed to providing the best possible educational programs for students, and whereas a reconfiguration of grading in the Marystown Central High School system is required to achieve that objective. Be it therefore resolved that Sacred Heart Academy will be reconfigured from grades K to 7 to grades K to 4. Donald C. Jameson Academy will be reconfigured from grades K to 7 to grades 5 to 7. Be it therefore further resolved that, effective September 2020, students will attend the appropriate school in accordance with the new grade configuration. Sacred Heart Academy's student attendance zone will be rezoned to include the current student attendance zone for grades K to 4 for Donald C. Jameson Academy. Donald C. Jameson Academy student attendance zone will be rezoned to include the current student attendance zone for grades 5 to 7 for Sacred Heart Academy. The board is giving notice that the motion will no longer be put forward for a vote at the March meeting. Thank you.
So I apologize to those at home. I didn't use the mic when I was saying it's just we're giving notice that the motion that was proposed in that review process is now being retracted, and we won't be having a vote on that specific issue on that day. The first motion will certainly be entertained. Next item on our agenda is the director's report.
Thank you, Chair. Director's report for February 1st. So the topics I'll be covering, assisted by my colleagues at our senior staff: school review update, infrastructure priorities, something we call Kids in the Know, a program we're going to tell you about, some updates on status of women liaison, a look back at our fall strategic plan update, and a note on the topic of coherence, which we've been undertaking this last few years. So, school system reviews. These reviews are underway and culminating in the process of March 28th. the 5 that are involved on the top, and then there's another review that might result in a possible reconfiguration depending on what happens with our study of St. Mary's Elementary. So in terms of the process that was outlined at the beginning of the school review, we are now nearing the bottom. We are well into Phase 2. In Phase 2, we've updated the information online. Everybody has an information package online indicating the proposals for the notices of motion that were tabled. And where the feedback now is being collated and a report will be shared based on what occurred in the Thought Exchange platform. There are public presentations to the board scheduled, which I'll cover shortly, and then the process will culminate, of course, once the board reviews all these inputs at the March 28 meeting. So the Marystown Central High School System Review pertaining to Motion 1 only now on Monday, March 2nd at Marystown Central High. The Glovertown Academy System, the public meetings taking place Tuesday, March 3rd at the Orange Lodge in Charlottetown. Dorset Collegiate System, Wednesday, March 4th at Dorset Collegiate itself in Pelleas Island. The Stephenville High School and Piccadilly Central High School System Review, Thursday, March 5th at Stephenville High School. The Phoenix Academy and Gill Memorial System Review will be later in March on the 17th at Sandstone Academy right in Ladle Cove. The meetings will all take place at 6 p.m., at which point there will be an opportunity, and there is a communication to that effect, that the public can sign up for 10-minute presentations for the Board of Trustees to either hear physically or join virtually at those meetings. Just a note on capital. This is not the full capital priorities plan, but it does highlight the priorities that we are championing to government for the next cycle from government priorities for new or revised infrastructure within the district. The Dorset collegiate system is part of our review process, and of course no decision will be made until after the review. Henry Gordon Academy is in Cartwright, and the existing school is in need of a replacement for a smaller, modern facility. The regional office in Corner Brook, work is underway right now as we speak to renovate the former Humber Elementary to a new board office there, regional board office and learning center. We also have Bombay Academy on the list for a new school, extension and renovations to J.J. Curling, and a new school as per the long-standing Corner Brook K-9 reorganization plan for C.C. Loughlin. Okay, pleased to bring you an update on a program that we've been in meetings with the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary Chief Boland and child advocate Bev Moore-Davis from the Miles for Smiles organization. And we've been in discussions around introducing a program known as Kids in the Know, and it's offered by the Canadian Centre for Child Protection. It's a national interactive safety education program. And what it does is it uses age-appropriate lessons to increase children's personal safety skills to reduce their victimization online and in the real world. It's we're launching a pilot program in our K-3 schools. We've targeted some 20 schools with a view to expanding this into 2020 next year and taking it on for all schools. It is used across Canada by many schools. It uses interactive lessons to build personal safety confidence by teaching critical problem-solving skills. It's purposely designed to create a common language to help facilitate the way we teach kids about their own personal safety. Topics include safe and responsible use of technology, healthy relationships and boundaries, daily safety habits, as well as knowing when and how to seek help. I should also update you, we had a request by the Status of Women regarding, and they were all of the regional councils together with the Provincial Advisory Council on the Status of Women, wrote to the district requesting that the provision of feminine hygiene products be provided free of charge in our schools. So the district, quite rightly, I think, agreed with this request, and we have confirmed that the schools will be providing within the necessary, will provide schools with the necessary budget line to acquire these items and provide at the district expense. And in addition, we will be providing posters to the schools in order to make students aware of how and where they may access those products in those individual schools. Also, following that request from the Status of Women, I as CEO offered to meet with the Status of Women Provincial Advisory Council, and the CEO, Ms. Paula Shepherd, met with us in early January, and we are really looking forward to an enhanced relationship between the district's 4 regional offices and the women's centres that are around the province. So we will take steps to establish a liaison structure through our staff, our safe and inclusive itinerants, and school health and promotion liaison consultants, reaffirming our commitment to collaborate on areas of mutual concern with Ms. Shepherd's provincial organization and those regional authorities. Moving now to the strategic plan update for the fall. Once again, our 3 pillars: student success, safe and caring, and leadership development and organizational effectiveness. And I'm going to ask each of the principals involved in this from their positions to speak to this. So firstly, if I can prevail upon Ed to discuss student success.
Thank you, Tony. Obviously, 2 of the highlight areas for student success for us are in the areas of literacy and numeracy. Many around the table have heard about the implementation of the Education Action Plan, and specifically the responsive teaching and learning policy. We are halfway through year 2 of the phased implementation of that policy. I guess the things that we're hearing from the system are very, very positive about the impact that the implementation of that policy is having. And we're currently gearing up, in consultation with the department for phase 3 for all the remaining schools that are going to be a part of that program starting this September. We talked a little bit about that earlier this morning in terms of the resources that are coming with that implementation. On the numeracy side, we continue our development of our Building Numeracy NL website, and I'm advised that our website is getting hits from not only from our own teachers here in the province, but we're also getting hits from teachers all across the country. And we're getting requests for permission to use the resources that we've developed in other jurisdictions, and that's certainly evidence of the power and the value of the work that's being put into developing the resources on that site.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Mr. Walsh is the Associate Director for Programs and Human Resources. And now I'd ask Ms. Georgina Lake to discuss Indigenous education and multicultural education. Ms. Lake is the Assistant Director for Student Services.
Thank you, Mr. Stack. Indigenous education, we have a new director for Indigenous education, Shane Welcher, started this fall. He is collaborating with the Department of Education and Early Childhood Development on the framework for Indigenous education that they're developing as part of the Education Action Plan. We also have a pilot initiative happening in Western Newfoundland, Well Ahead. And Well Ahead will see the implementation of value walks. So that's where we combine walking in the outdoors, sharing cultural knowledge related to our Indigenous group, the Mi'kmaq, and the value of the Aboriginal worldviews for all students. Multicultural education, we have a new director as part of the Education Action Plan, Bonnie Woodland, and also the Department of Education and Early Childhood Development is creating a framework, and Bonnie's working closely with the department staff who are creating that framework. ESL and Learn, we have 928 students right now, newcomers to Newfoundland and Labrador, who are accessing ESL programming. that's in the province. We have, in addition to that, the LEARN program, which is literacy enrichment and academic readiness for newcomers. And those are for our learners who are not quite ready yet to engage in prescribed curriculum. They may have some significant gaps in their schooling, may not have attended school for some number of sometimes up to years before they came to join our schools. That program is only available in the metro region, but this year has been expanded to more schools than ever.
With respect to safe and caring, Ms. Lake, if you could carry on.
Okay. So under the proactive programs to support positive behaviors, we're continuing to work on across K-12. We have a variety of programs such as Strive, Students Taking Responsibility in Violence Education. This program empowers students to take ownership of the challenges they're facing and find their own solutions in the scope of the program. Drug Abuse Resistance Program, DARE. I'm sure lots of you have heard about DARE programming. It provides students with the skills required to take a stand against the illegal use of drugs and make healthy and wise choices. Roots of Empathy is a program that sees our elementary children develop empathy through working with a family and a newborn child over the period of a school year. And Beyond the Hurt, grades 6 and 7 students, this is a bullying and harassment prevention program that many of our schools are using. Social media initiatives, we continue to refine and improve our internet and social media lessons. So we have a suite of lessons K-12 that we strongly encourage all our schools to implement to support student learning around digital literacy and citizenship. And our safe and inclusive school itinerants are also developing a pretty robust site for all teachers K-12 to access so that when they have a question as it relates to social media, they can find resources to support their practice, all grade levels. And LGBTQ 2 guidelines and initiatives. Recently, we made changes to PowerSchool, our student records policy, so that students now can use the preferred names without making legal name changes. And there's also been funding available for schools who want to add gender-inclusive washrooms.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Lake. Next, Mr. Walsh.
Thank you. The district continues a significant amount of work and resources developed or dedicated to support mental health initiatives in the school district. We have a lot of work that's ongoing to support students with a number of different initiatives, including applied suicide intervention training. That's ASSIST training that's provided to guidance counselors, educational psychologists, school administrators, and teachers. We've also been providing professional learning on trauma-informed practice and school-based trauma-informed practices, as well as a Google Classroom to provide resources on mental health and wellness. Wanted to highlight the hearing conservation program that's currently being developed. This program is designed to identify environmental factors in schools and on buses that negatively impact hearing and provide information on the creation of positive hearing spaces for students and staff. Our plan is to move forward with implementation of this program during this winter 2020.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. And if I could prevail upon Ms. Lake to pick this one up.
Thank you. The third pillar in our strategic plan, leadership and organizational effectiveness. For the past number of years, we've been working through a program, Emerging Leaders. This year, because of a shifting demand in our HR needs, we moved to leadership development for new administrators. In August, we started with 3 days of onboarding orientation for new administrators. In December, we followed that up with, by now we're up to 50 new administrators. And we did a 2-hour virtual session with a focus on student services. And most recently, January 15th and 16th, we met for 2 days with the same 50 administrators, and we focused on programming for all learners. So that's been an exciting work this fall.
And Mr. Terry Walsh, Chief Financial Officer, Assistant Director, can you please carry on with the remaining?
Thank you, Mr. Director. Yes, always pleased to talk about efficiency and, of course, safety, our number one priority in the district for our students. Starting with some effectiveness in our operation, we've just newly revealed a fraud risk management program that will complement our overall operational risk management program that we've been implementing and keeping moving over the last 3 years or so. The fraud risk piece specifically identifies area where fraud is a possibility, but implements controls to significantly reduce that from happening. The global positioning system is, of course, in the vein of our safety for our students. We've already monitored and protocoled a global positioning system on 2 different fronts. We're preparing to launch to acquire one of those in the spring and further implementation in the next school year. This will allow a portal that will people will be able to see exactly where our buses are located, understand where they're to, for student safety to know where the buses are when they're being picked up. It'll also provide the district with metrics with respect to the efficient operation of buses and mechanical metrics to be able to understand that they're performing at the rate that they're supposed to be performing at.
And want to jump in there on the,
You go ahead
on the Smart Find Express. We continue as a district to make more efficient our call-out system for those employee groups that we've included in Smart Find. Those would include student assistant, bus drivers, custodians, and secretaries. We've just completed a pilot program on auto calls for teacher substitutes on the Burin Peninsula. We're evaluating the results of that pilot program, highlighting some of the strengths, I guess, and gaps that we identified as a part of that pilot program before we go any further with it. The Smart Find program is also being prepped to be able to assist us in managing leave requests on the education side, to get us away from the paper copies of leave requests and to have that done electronically.
Thank you, Ed. So some more operational efficiencies we're getting, more specifically in our student transportation division. We have a new DocuSign software which will help us expedite executing contracts and gathering the relevant information we need on our contracted routes, and it allows for digital signature, so we can be more proactive. Of course, we're always updating our procedures and policies. More specifically, we also have a renewed, school bus safety program, which includes education in the classroom. All students will practice bus evacuation drills, and of course the loading and unloading in a safe manner for all students. This fall, as school was starting, we also partnered with the government and the police authorities across the province to launch a bus safety campaign to continuously remind everybody about safety around school buses, obeying school bus signs, and being mindful of students going to school and especially around our school zones. So it's very successful, and we intend to continue doing that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. So as you can see, we're into the 3rd year of our strategic plan and continuing to execute on all the requirements successfully. I would like, under leadership development, just to highlight this particular one. We've been really enthused with what's happening with respect to our new administrators and their development. We've been focusing on them and exposing new administrators to some of our seasoned administrators, mentoring them, training new administrators in innovative programming for schools. We've been also leveraging the Directors Principal Advisory Group which is a standing committee of some 13 administrators from across the province of various configurations that work with me to advise me as director and the senior staff, leveraging those folks to work with these individuals as well. And we're getting some really incredible feedback as a result. The two-day session in Gander that I recently participated in, led by Georgina and our assistant directors in other regions of the province, I got comments back from the participants. I felt like I was attending a TEDx conference. There is more to programming than simply making a schedule. It was reassuring to see that schools, real schools, similar to my own, overcame considerable challenges to provide comprehensive student-centered programming. Another comment, these 2 days have been the most authentic professional learning experiences I've ever had. There was an optimistic energy in the room. And having witnessed it, I have to say I'm very pleased about the next generation of leaders that we're injecting into the Newfoundland Labrador English School District. And hats off to the senior team for putting that together and continuing to promote leadership development, which is something I think speaks to your success as a board in pushing that as part of our strategic plan. Also in the vein of leadership, very pleased to announce, we're just finalizing and able to share with you now that we've modified our normal regional meetings from largely administrative meetings with some professional learning to focusing totally on those leading learners in our system, our administrators and those who support them in programs. Traditionally, we've gone around the province twice a year. We have fall meetings and we have winter meetings or winter-spring meetings. And this year we decided to capitalize on the eventual launch of our program around educational reform within Newfoundland Labrador English School District on the topic of coherence and well-being, and bring all administrators in the province together in St. John's as opposed to a regional meeting this one time. It's not something we do very often. We have the privilege of having renowned educational researcher and leader, Dr. Michael Fullen, to come and speak to the group and help facilitate in the sessions. We've got a number of our own breakout sessions being led by our very own talent in this province. That'll take place at the Delta Hotel on the March 10th and 11th. All principals from across the country, or across the not country, can't afford that, across the province to come and for 2 days of focused learning together. That will also include program specialists, and I would cordially invite, enthusiastically invite, all of the trustees around the table. If you can afford the time and spend the full 2 days, I think you'll find it a very rewarding experience if you're able to participate in that on March 10th and 11th. We haven't finalized exactly who is accompanying Dr. Fullen, but there will be elements of his international team that will participate as well. So really enthused about this. We've reached out informally and soon to be formally to the Education and Early Childhood Development, our department, as well as the Newfoundland Labrador Teachers Association. So really looking forward to that event and happy to share that here today. And subject to your questions, Mr. Chair, that is the Director's report.
Thank you, Tony. I'll have to give you a lesson on names, on how to pronounce them, right, and how to do them, and then you don't amalgamate them and do those kinds of things. But that's okay. No, thank you, Tony, for the work, and it would be remiss if I didn't recognize the tremendous amount of work that took place this past week, not directly in education, but certainly in student safety and making decisions about the snow situation on the Avalon Peninsula over the last couple of days. It certainly, a system our size, and to be able to react and do what we've got to do to make sure everyone is safe, and so it takes a lot of work, and it takes ability to make decisions in real time as opposed to taking a long time. So hats off to you for that, because it was a very well done, and we received a lot of feedback. I received, as chair, a lot of feedback about how successful the process was, so that's a good thing. All right, next on the agenda is, normally we follow the director's report with committee reports, but because of some of that... Oh, you certainly can, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Looking at the new director of Indigenous Education, mentioned there was a new director. Is the new director Indigenous? And Where is the office? Is it here in St. John's? And does the person travel? And what is the terms of reference for his job description?
Okay. The person wasn't formally put out as being part of the headquarters here, but that's ultimately where the successful candidate came from. So it is a position here at headquarters with us. I don't know the origin of the gentleman that's occupying the position, and I'll prevail upon Georgina to describe some of the high points of the terms of reference. Obviously not all of them, because they're quite lengthy.
So the scope of responsibilities for our new Director for Indigenous Education are in line with the Education Action Plan. So it's to finalize and implement the framework. So in regards to does the person travel, absolutely. At this point, they're building relationships with all our Indigenous partners in the province and has already done some travel. But just this week, we were able to launch a series of professional learning opportunities for our staff provincially, because we know for sure that the first step is to have our district staff informed and responding to students with the right information. And all the data indicates that right now, provincially, Newfoundlanders and Labradorians don't have foundational knowledge about who the Indigenous populations are. So that's where we're starting.
Thank you. Any further questions for the Director? Okay, hearing none, we will, as I was saying a second ago, the committee reports, there were no, because of the storm and stuff, we didn't have committee meetings in between this and our last meeting, so there are no reports to be had on that. Under new business, we're going to ask Tom to give us an update on the Educational Foundation report of November 4th and December 8th.
Thank you, Chair. There are no motions coming forward from the Education Foundation minutes of November the 4th and December the 8th. However, just to inform you, on November the 4th, we approved the audited financial statements for the period ending December the 31st, 2018. And the foundation received over $100,000 in charitable donations in 2018. And we had a discussion on scholarships and grants for the 2019-2020 school year. And there was a fair bit of discussion on that, actually, on the distribution of the scholarships, whether it should be just the high school or should we go lower to the intermediate grades and provide scholarships in grade 9 as well. So we're looking at getting suggestions from teachers and principals out in the field to see in what direction we should go. So the one motion is that the board approve the Education Foundation report of November the 4th as presented, and I will move that motion to approve those minutes.
Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Pam. Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
And also thank you, also on December the 8th, we also had a further discussion on scholarships, and there was a suggestion to connect with employees via thought exchange to get their opinions on the use of the 50-50 money going forward. That's the lottery that the staff is involved in. And Tobin was going, manager of policy and planning, was going to report back to the committee at our next meeting. So that was a very short meeting, actually. So the motion that the board approve the Education Foundation report of December the 8th, 2019 as presented. And I move that motion.
Seconded by Peter. Any questions, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Against? Motion carries.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. The next report that we have is the School Foundation, and I'll ask Trustee Harris to present.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a brief report on meetings from July 10th, September 16th, October 2nd, and October 21st. So nothing recently. It's in the past. And it basically deals with one issue, which is chocolate milk in schools. Because since the new Canadian Food Guide came out, I think it left all dairy off. And most schools are now not selling chocolate milk because of the sugar content in chocolate milk. Anyway, on July 10th, Ms. Boyd updated the board on Canada Food Guidelines Assessment Report, which was to be finalized by the end of August, and also on School Food Guidelines Pilot Project, which will be run in 11 schools across the province in 2019-2020. Discussion continued in length, and the following items were determined as actioned. Mr. John Moores and Mr. Zach Young were to meet with Ms. Michelle Healy and Ms. Heidi Boyd to discuss the sale of chocolate milk in schools. And there was a conference call to take place between School Milk Foundation and dairy farmers in Newfoundland and Labrador to update all concerned on the chocolate milk issue. On September 16th, there was a board conference call, again, basically here to discuss the fact that the School Lunch Association in Newfoundland and Labrador were removing chocolate milk from their menus. They would no longer purchase chocolate milk, and they said it was because it was too expensive. The price went up in September. Mr. Steve Green spoke to his conversations with Mr. Ken Hopkins at the School Lunch Association and discussed Saputo's offer of a one-time donation in the amount of $30,000 to help the School Lunch Association cover the extra cost of chocolate milk. Saputo, of course, will be looking for the Dairy Farmers Newfoundland and Labrador and School Milk Foundation Newfoundland and Labrador to assist with that $30,000 donation. Also, there's a concern discussed that school milk delivery would be impacted if chocolate milk were not sold, because in lots of places around the island, there's not enough white milk sold to justify making the delivery. Also, the reformulation of chocolate milk is a possibility. And by reformulation, I mean getting rid of some of the added sugar, because there is added sugar in chocolate milk, and they were talking about cutting back on the amount of added sugar in chocolate milk. And hopefully then that would entice the School Lunch Association and others to purchase. Mr. Moores sent a letter to School Lunch Association, and it was agreed that we hold off on making a decision on the School Lunch Association proposal of $10,000, which School Milk Association gave them annually, until the issue was resolved. Mr. Pierre Tobin was to update the Dairy Farmers Newfoundland Labrador Board on issues with School Lunch Association, chocolate milk, school milk prices, etc. And Mr. Tobin asked the DFNL Board for assistance and reported to the board in September. The board decided to put the School Lunch Association proposal for funding on hold until the next meeting or conference call. And after the School Lunch Association was offered the $30,000 to cover the cost of the increase, they decided that wasn't the reason that they weren't buying chocolate milk. They weren't buying chocolate milk because of the sugar content. First it was the price, then it was the sugar content. And on October 2nd, again, another conference call, and the School Lunch Association decided under no circumstances were they offering chocolate milk in their schools. However, they were still having, juice would still be offered as an option. Letters were sent to the School Lunch Association offering assistance, again, with school milk sales. Mr. Moores and Mr. Green met with Mr. Hopkins of School Lunch Association to discuss their offer of a one-time donation, but this offer was rejected by School Lunch Association. October 21st, the last meeting, Crosby Williams of the Dairy Farmers in Newfoundland and Labrador, Vice Chair John Moores and Wayne Simmons met with the School Lunch Chair, Cyril Hayden and Ken Hopkins, the executive director, on October 15th, it was confirmed that the School Lunch Association would definitely stop purchasing chocolate milk because it is too expensive. Mr. Hayden indicated that the plan going forward for School Lunch Association is to be in all schools in the province. And discussions continued about this issue and also about the future of School and Milk Foundation. The board decided to put the School Lunch Association proposed funding on hold until the next meeting or next conference call. It was decided to establish a strategic plan to review for the School Milk Foundation going forward and send the document to all board members. I would like to move that the board just approve the School Milk Foundation report that I just presented.
Thank you, Eric, our expert on milk. Can I get a seconder to receive the report? Seconded by Lester. Any questions? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Those against? Motion carries. Thank you, Eric, for that. Next on the agenda is the fall report strategic plan. We're going to ask our manager of policy if she'd say a few words. Susan? Toll?
Test. I don't think it's working. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, I'll speak up. Presented for information in your package was the fall report for the period of July 1st, 2019, ending December 31st, 2019. As you know, this is the fall report for the third and final year of our strategic plan, which is from 2017 to 2020, ending June this year. Progress is continuing in all areas, and the update was spoken about in the director's report that we just reviewed a few minutes ago. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susan. Any questions or? Okay, thank you. So that completes the report section of the piece. Now we have our in and out correspondence and the way we normally deal with that. Do any of the trustees have any questions related to inbound or outbound correspondence? We don't have very many out because we've only just gone through a meeting. All right, perfect. Before we adjourn to close, I did want to say just a quick word because, quite often trustees' lives go on and we dedicate time and we do lots of things for people, for the students in the province and making choices and trying to help and improve the system. And particularly this time, hailing out of the big land, we have one of our trustees who, this is going to be his last session of the table. It's going to be Lester, representing Labrador West. He is going to live I wanted to say the joke because he's leaving our province and moving to Toronto, and everyone knows that that's a peculiar beast that does that. But anyway, he is going to retire, and in my particular context, I've worked with Lester as a volunteer and as within a system for a very long time. I've been involved in the trustees side, the Labrador School Board, and the provincial school board, and have dealt, on an ongoing basis with Lester in the West. And there's one thing that I can always say is that whether you agree or agree or disagree, the premise of the discussion is always about the improvement and the best interest of the students within the Labrador West, the province, and the district. And that's what this job is all about. And I'm, sad to see you go. But I do understand that you have to move on and do what's good for you and the family in Toronto. So I wish you the very best, and thank you for all that enormous amount of time that you have dedicated to doing this job for the students in the province. Thank you. Okay. So next, can I get a motion to move to closed, please? Moved by Wayne, seconded by John George. All in favor? Aye. Those against? Motion carries. We're going to take a quick break while we allow everything to flow over. Thank you very much.